the old ha-ha-ha channel. Bring it up there, Big. And here's the star of our show. It's Freddie the Walrus. Yeah, did you know that one time in my nefarious career, I once played a character called Freddie the Walrus? You did know that? Oh, well, then there's no point in telling you about it. Rave reviews, by the way. You knew that? Yeah, okay. I did. That was a character part. I must concede that it was a principal, though. It was not necessarily the lead, although there were some scenes where the walrus was big. But I did play Freddie the Walrus. Oh, we're going to have to answer for a lot, I'll tell you. Before we get too deeply involved in the aesthetics of existence tonight, I would like to... you mean you're not interested in the aesthetics of existence? I hope so. For heaven's sakes, what else is there? As Marcel Proust said, all is, what the hell did he say? Doggone, it's on the tip of my thing here. You don't know who Proust was? Oh, sure you do. He used to do the news on Channel 2. Yeah, don't you remember? They had that weather lady came out with the pink tights. Yeah, big nose, that's right. Big beak. Used to call him Beaky Proust. Would you please give me a little beak music there, please, if you will? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Here we go now. Here's the chorus. Like that? How'd you like that, huh? It's good for the sinuses. I just had to do that. You know, I really haven't for a long time. I haven't played any real good stuff, you know. I mean, I'm talking about I haven't picked up my axe. Played you some stuff here. All right. How about give me cut one on that same side, please, if you will. I just feel like it, and I don't care whether you like it or not. What is today? Yeah. Nobody knows. That's okay. That's what I like, timelessness. I really do. I like people who can shove off the great chains of time.
Get an economical mid-size car that won't cramp your style. The roomy Matador with a 6-cylinder engine standard. And the all-new 74 Matador is the only mid-size car backed by the exclusive AMC Buyer Protection Plan. An unbeatable combination, the 74 Matador plus the Buyer Protection Plan. It means, under normal usage and accepting tires, if anything AMC did goes wrong with your new 74 in the first 12 months or 12,000 miles, we'll fix or replace it, free. Come in, meet the unbeatable combination. 74 Matador backed by the AMC Buyer Protection Plan.
See your AMC dealer where you get a good deal and a good deal more. Hey, by the way, somebody wrote me a note and says that, did you know that America, the other day I got into a thing on the air here about a salute to money. You know, we should have a stamp that salutes money, the collecting of money, you know, one of the great American hobbies. And, I was talking about all the great bills, the fantastic bills. You ever seen a $1,000 bill? Nobody knows what's on the $1,000 bill, whose picture's on the $1,000 bill. Well, did you know that there's a $500 million bill? That is the truth. A $500 million bill. Now, there are only 2 of them in existence. And you just ain't going to break that down at the chock full of nuts. You walk in, you know, and you lay that on that lady back there handing out the brownies. And, you know, you may just wind up buying the whole chain, plus the New York Yankees. Hey, I've got a great idea, you know, I just came up with it. Did you hear that Charlie Finley is thinking of selling the A's, the Oakland A's? Yes, he announced that. Well, I thought it was a great idea. Why should the New York Yankees always try to get the manager of the A's to come work for them? Why don't they buy the A's and bring them here to New York? We'd have a pennant winner right for starters, right? You know? And then send the Yankees back out there, you know? Let Dick Williams manage him out there, you know? See how good he does with Horace Clark, you know? But the fact is, it would be kind of that would make a wonderful gift for somebody. You know, buying the A's. Wouldn't it, though? Anybody out there thinking of giving me a gift, I'd love to have that. That's about the only gift that would really bring the roses to my cheeks, you know, really great. And I'd buy myself a pair of spiked shoes. Of course, if you're, you know, I've waited for Finley to do that. You know, Finley has tested every baseball precept there is and proved that he's always right, you know, he always wins. What would happen if opening day comes and Finley himself decides he is going to play second base? Well, you know, what could they say? I mean, you know, it's a ball club. You know, is there any rule that says you can't play because you're 68 years old and got arthritis? Is there any rule that says that? If so, that rule is absolutely unconstitutional. It is you know, making a clear demarcation point against people with arthritis who are 68 years old. No way. I mean, what could stop him? He could make a shambles out of baseball in a week, especially if he hit 300. I mean, everyone, listen, you think that's funny? Everybody lashes. Oh, come on. You know, there's a very famous story about just exactly that kind of thing one time happened. And it's a famous story. It happened in the early days of Major League Baseball. Now, these were ball players. I don't think it was the early days, you know. No. These were ball players. And there was a guy at that time, I believe it was Louisville. Yeah, Louisville at that time was in the majors. And there was a sports writer who was relentlessly attacking the ball team. He was a Louisville sports writer, and he just relentlessly just really blasting them all the time. And in those days, the press box was really a box, where they get the idea, the word press box that they use all the time. It's really not a box anymore. It's a stand, little stands, kind of like a little glass thing that sticks out under the upper deck usually. And certainly it's not a box. But the reason that they call the press box the press box was that in early days of sports coverage, they actually had a box that the guy sat in. And it was a little, just a box. It had a little railing around it. And it was a wooden railing in the middle of the stands, and there he was. The press guys would squat right in the middle of the crowd. The crowd's all around them, and they're sitting there, and they got their typewriters or whatever it is, see. And so naturally, they were themselves the butt of considerable yelling. So if you had written an angry column, denouncing somebody's favorite second baseman as being a bum, a clod, a fathead, and a phony, while 5 minutes later you're sitting out the ballpark and the guys are throwing beer at you. Oh, what do you know? All that kind of, what, the writers take this all the time. So anyway, this is a famous historical case. This guy was relentlessly riding the ball team. Well, here it is now. It's like the third inning, and somebody got hurt out on the field. And the manager, the people yelling and hollering, and particularly the guy that was hurt in this ball game was the guy that this writer had been riding just totally, constantly. And he was an infielder, by the way, so riding him like mad. So at that point, the crowd is yelling and hollering, and they all turn up. See, now the guy's gotten hit, he's gotten hurt. So they all turn up and they start hollering at the guy in the press box. Yeah, how do you like that? He stopped there now, he's hurt. Hey, yeah, what do you think of that now? So at that point, the manager walks right over to the stand and says, all right, smart guy, you've been writing all that stuff. How about, let's see how good you can do. All right. Now, this actually happened. Now, this is part of baseball history. This is not a fanciful story. It is an absolute, this really happened. At which point, here the crowd was starting to, yeah, go ahead. Let's see how good you can do. Oh, yeah, you're probably working typewriter, you phony. At that point, he gets up and he says, all right. He climbs over the box amid the flying pop bottles and stuff, goes down on the field, and they didn't even have a suit for him. At which point, he rolls his pants up. This is what he really did. He takes a glove, goes out and plays the entire rest of the ball game, goes 2 for 3, believe it or not, fielded his position flawlessly, and went back up at the end of the game. People are yelling, goes back, and starts to write up the game. Well, he never played. That's an absolute true story. Well, I'll tell you another one if you want to hear another story like that. I don't, this is a kind of a, I didn't intend to do this tonight, but I might as well since we got off on this. Have you ever seen people do a thing like that? A totally completely unpredictable, almost a miraculous performance under totally, negative conditions. Which reminds me, this is WOR, New York. I was referring to negative modulation gang out there. Any of you know anything about the technique? I'm not, there's nothing to do with the whole total concept of this beautiful station. No way.
This is Joe D. from Chief Pontiac in Little Falls, New Jersey. Smart shoppers are making a killing at Chief Pontiac these days because I had to mark down my used cars to really ridiculous prices to reduce my inventory. I've got over 400 used cars on hand right now, everything from compacts to Cadillacs, and I've put low prices on every standard or luxury car. If you really want to make a killing, come in and look over the selection of late model standard and luxury cars that I've got on sale. A good driver can get excellent mileage out of a larger car with no sacrifice to safety and comfort. But whatever you're looking for, from the teeny tiny to the big, solid, and beautiful, I've got them in stock and priced for clearance at Chief Pontiac on Route 46 in Little Falls, New Jersey. And get the buy of a lifetime. Buy a luxury car for the price of a foreign car or a subcompact.
But nevertheless, I'll tell you another story. If you want to hear a really funny one, I was out in Cincinnati. Now, this is almost unbelievable, but this is actually what happened. And I'm telling you again, a true story. This happened in Cincinnati. Now, Cincinnati has a big opera company, and they're very famous. The Cincinnati Zoo Opera is a big, big deal. And as a matter of fact, most of the people who perform the Cincinnati Zoo Opera during the summertime are people from the Met. This is big-time opera. Well, they come out there and, it's always sold out, tremendous sale of tickets, and it's very social and very elegant, and people sit out there in this beautiful band shell in the zoo. It's actually done in the zoo at night, and it's really beautiful. And all around you, as they're doing Lohengrin or something, you can hear the sound of lions roaring. Yeah, they roar, and once in a while when the fiddles or something hit a certain note, you can hear all the seals. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Seals are barking like crazy. and it's kind of great. But nevertheless, this guy that I knew, a friend of mine, I'll have to tell you a story. He was a big man. I mean, physically a big guy, and an interesting guy, very interesting man. And he was in construction. Now, when you say in construction, his family was in construction. They were, big construction people out there, and of course, his family was very social. And they were on the board of directors of the Zoo Opera. They were involved in the whole thing. Every year they'd put together the Zoo Opera. And he was kind of interested in showbiz a little bit, this guy. He kind of was interested in it. And he had a big, heavy chest, big guy. And he was I'd say probably at that time, possibly in his early 30s. But he was big. He was about as big as, your average defensive lineman in the NFL. Yeah, he was big, really big. He was about 6'5", 6'6", weighed about probably 250, but big, a great big guy, and a very funny guy. But he was in construction. Well, they had the whole program set for the year. He'd been working. He was involved in the program there, and he was all set. And so they had all the great operas. They were doing operas like, Wagner. They were doing things like, Lohengrin was one they did that year. They did Faust. They did things like, The Barber of Seville, classic operas. So, and of course, every time they did a classic opera, they would bring out the cast from New York, the Met, who had performed this opera many times, and Roberta Peters and all these people were out there. So anyway, it so happened that here they were. They had this week that they were performing, rehearsing this opera, which was to be done beginning the following Saturday. It was like, say, on a Friday, the week before, they started to rehearse this opera, and they would go down every day. Well, all of a sudden, right in the middle of rehearsal, it was fantastic. The bass, the basso profundo. And they were doing Faust, by the way. If you know anything about Faust, this is about the devil. I mean, out comes Mephistopheles, and he comes roaring out of the stage in a tremendous flash of light and smoke and steam. And this, tremendous scene where he suddenly appears when Dr. Faustus says, "I will sell my soul to the devil." And at that point, he looks up to heaven or something, and he shakes his fist, a great Germanic legend, Goethe, and he shakes his fist at the devil, and he says, "I will sell my soul." And there's a great big uproar, and out of the stage, and with a great gout of flame and fire, comes the devil. Says, "Ha, you've made a deal." Well, he doesn't exactly say that. In fact, all right, I'll call you on it. And at that point, Dr. Faustus is presented with the great moral problem of the age. You see, whether to sell your soul to become 22 again and make the scene with this unbelievable chick, which he has just met, or be the great philosopher that he is and continue to expound upon morality till his dying days, about 90, see. Well, now, there's not many of us would have to question twice what we take. I mean, if the devil showed up, I think you would at least give him a good hearing, wouldn't you? I mean, after all, I believe in listening to every man. I believe in, I'm not going to reject anything out of hand. And you may not go entirely with all the stuff that he asks, but I think you may make some kind of a deal, right? Well, this devil, of course, in this case, offered unbelievable, great side of benefits. He said, if you sell your soul, friend, I'll lay all kinds of stuff on you that you wouldn't believe. I once played this role. That's why I know this role very well. Or did you know that? on the New York stage. I played Mephistopheles in a play. If you're curious, you can go back in your theatrical history. You'll find it listed. It was a regular production. It was a play called M. And then it was later changed. The play was later changed to A Banquet for the Moon. And it played here in New York and got good reviews, by the way. And the role I played was Mephistopheles, who, by the way, in this case, came out of the audience. A very interesting idea, where everybody was watching this play, see. The way it looked like, the way the play was written, the play was way ahead of its time, actually. So the people are in the audience, just like you go to the theater. But unbeknownst to them, there I was sitting there in a seat, just like everybody else. I just looked like a theater goer sitting there in a seat. And with a girl, you see, there was a woman with me, girl, and I'm sitting in the seat. And up on the stage, I don't know why I'm telling you this story. Are you interested in that? How this thing was done? Up on the stage, you saw what looked like a chemical laboratory. It was a laboratory, somebody's lab. Had lab tables, had all kinds of retorts and Bunsen burners and stuff going. It was dark and flickering. And you see this old man, really an old man, sitting there. And he looked like Einstein, actually. He had white hair, gnarled, wrinkled face. And he was really very old. And he's unhappy, really unhappy. He's so unhappy that you can see he's in the depth of depression. And that's the way the play opens. He's sitting up there and he's looking at a copy of Time magazine. And he's on the cover of Time. See, open there. You see his picture right there. And he's looking at it and you can see him. It's him on the cover of Time. And you can see that the headline on the magazine says something about father of the A-bomb or something. He was like the guy, one of the chief scientists who created the A-bomb. And now he was being riven by great conscience-stricken. He was conscience-stricken. And at least that's what you thought, remember. That's the point of the play. At least because he kept saying that, oh, God, what have I done? And he said, oh, what is I killed millions of innocent people. And he was up there, and suddenly he leaps up. He said, it can't go on. It's a very dramatic moment. He leaps up, and he takes what looks like a knife from the laboratory table there. It's got a drawer. He opens this drawer up and he takes this knife out, and with that, he just slashes his wrist. Zap, zap, very dramatically. And blood flows out all over the place. And he hangs down over the sink. And at that minute, I, out in the audience, say, hey, cut it out. What are you doing? And everybody turns around and looks at you. Obviously, hey, come on, what are you doing up there? And at that point, he doesn't even notice. He's just hanging over the sink. And I jump up and I run up and I says, no, wait a minute, let's take a look at you. I run up on the stage and people are all looking. And the guy runs right on the stage. He said, oh, wait a minute, good God, you cut your wrist, see? It's a very dramatic scene. It's like somebody has taken over and the guy looks up, what are you doing up here? And I says, wait a minute, hold on a minute there. Now, just a minute. Then I take this bag I've got with me. I got like a briefcase that I carry up on the stage. And I say, I'm a doctor. I'll take care of you. See, at that point, I bandage this guy up, and he's palsied. I want to kill myself. What are you doing? And then, wait a minute now. Wait a minute. I don't know why I'm telling you all this, but it sounds like an interesting play, doesn't it? Wait a minute. And he sits down, he's shaking, and there's blood all over the place, just all over it, squirts up on the wall. It's very dramatically done. They had a special kind of device that when this guy cut his wrist, sometimes when you cut your wrist, if you really do, you sever a very main artery, and boy, your blood will fly. So that's what they did. He cut his wrist, and the blood had flown all over the back of the stage. It was really a gruesome scene. So I'm sitting there with him, and I said, now, wait a minute now. Just a minute. The old man is shaking. He says, I've done terrible things, and I want mankind to. He's going on about mankind. All of a sudden, this guy says, now, wait a minute here. Just a minute. Just a minute now. I sympathize with you, but you know what your problem is? The old man looks up. You know what your problem is? You just never swung once in your whole life. That's what your real problem is. You come out with all this morality stuff. He said, what do you mean? I'll tell you what I mean. How would you like to be 22 again? I really mean it. How would you like to be 22 again? Knowing all you know now. How'd you like to do that? The guy looks at me. Sir, it's an insane idea. That's ridiculous. He says, no. How would you, I'm asking, how would you like to do this? I can arrange it for you to be 22. I'll guarantee you I can do it. Well, do I have to tell you? He was willing to sign. And he did sign. And the rest of the play is about what happened. And it was fantastic. Now, Mephistopheles is a great role. So anyway, going back to the Cincinnati Opera. Didn't think I was going to tell you that, did you? Oh no. You're dealing with a pro here, friends. Oh no. So going back to the opera, here they were. It was like about Wednesday or something, and they were supposed to open the opera Friday when all of a sudden the guy who had been brought in from New York, this very famous Mephistopheles, had an absolutely unbelievable, I saw him, I couldn't believe it. He had a case of laryngitis that suddenly hit him so bad he could not even talk and whisper. He's good. And they had doctors, and that was it, man. Well, now, Mephistopheles is a three-man opera. You don't drop one of them. I mean, if you have a cast of thousands, you could drop 200 or 300 and get by with it, but this was a cast of three. There was a tenor who sings the title role of Faustus, Mephistopheles, and then there was the girl. Right? Well, so they are really frantic. They had a whole thing, and they wire all over the country. They cannot get, at this short notice, a Faustus, or rather a Mephistopheles. Mephistopheli don't come quick. I mean, there ain't many of us around. So they frantic. Well, here is what happened. I'm going to tell you what happened because it's not going to seem, it's going to seem unreal to you, but it seemed unreal to everybody there at the time. That here they had this great symphony orchestra. And it was a true, whole 100-piece orchestra, fantastic. And the conductor was Fausto Pleva. Well, he was a great conductor. So the opera board is now in shambles. They're frantic because here they've got this opera set, and they only had a 6-week season. Something like you can't knock out a whole week. They're going to be in trouble. They had sold 12 million seats and all that for this whole week of Faust. So total sellout. So at that point, in one hectic session, my friend gets up and says, look, I'll give it a try. Well, now, I just want to say that's kind of an unusual thing to say. So everybody sort of, here it was night, and the orchestra was rehearsing the music, and he says, well, I'll fake it. I'll give it a try, And he certainly looked the part. He was 6'6", weighed 250 pounds. He had these great beetling brows. And he had, like many really big people, he was big, he had a deep voice. He really had a tremendous deep voice. And in fact, for years, just as sort of a kick, he used to play around in various little dramas around town. Remember, he's a big, real wealthy construction executive. He used to play in little theater drama things once in a while, just for kicks. And he would do a little part. And his voice was really tremendous, but he had this deep speaking voice. So at that point, since he was also a very important guy on the board, so he goes down to the rehearsal hall, and at that point he goes up on a stage, a towering character, say, and they play the music of this opening thing that he sings. Where Faust comes up and he says, I will sell my soul to the devil. There's a great roar of the timpani and a flash of light, and the lightning roars through the scenery, and the stage gets dark, and this huge figure comes roaring out of right on the ground with a cape. And he's got this black cape with a blood-red lining, goes roaring out. Well, at that point, Faust in the opera, he sings what amounts to a squeak. And nothing in the opera is that simple. I mean, he goes, whoa, something like that, all in tune. It's all done in German. He sings something like, what the hell is this? And at that point, Aktivish Mephistopheles, he sings Mephistopheles, and whoa, yelling and hollering, more thunder. And he sings this thing about blood. I have come to make a deal with you. Well, that's one of the great, fantastic moments in all of opera, if you've ever seen it. It's a gasser. Well, so they played the music, and Sam says, well, now, wait a minute. He says, he spoke a little German. He took some in high school. He was high school German. He's a very well-educated guy. So I think he went to Yale, but nevertheless, he was a very well-educated man, but he spoke just a little German, enough to get by in, third year high school or something. So he hears the music. Remember, he's never sung opera before. At that point, the conductor sings the part for him. He goes, and he's reading the music. And at that point, Sam, when they play the symphony, he goes, and the place was dumbfounded. It was fantastic. Well, I'm telling you the truth. It's unbelievable to hear. He faked that song so well that the opera singers, the ones who were playing the tenor and the girl, they were thrown. They thought this guy must have been secretly sneaking off to Milan, Italy, or something, singing at La Scala on the side. He really, he figured. So at that point, they had a hurried conference, and they decided they were going to go with it. And so, for the next 2 days, he frantically rehearsed with the orchestra. And he had a great mind, a quick study, too. And he was able to learn the part in about 3 or 4 days. And they opened that night, and they didn't say anything about it. Just said, he, by the way, picked another name to use. He did not use his name, which was used locally. He picked another name. And nobody knew the difference. A fantastic performance. The next day, there were great reviews. And from that time on, he sang Mephistopheles for 3 or 4 nights, and the real Mephistopheles came back, and it was hardly a beat missed. If anything, he was more impressive because he was about 6 inches taller than the other Mephistopheles, more commanding. But the other guy sang a little better, but not much. That was what was so scary. I happened to be there every night the performances went on. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. So one night I said to him, how the hell did you do this? He said, well, just faked it. I faked it? Yeah. Well, yes. Of course, this is the way he talked. Yes. After all, not many people speak very good German there in the audience. And I felt that I could handle it. Well, that's the time when you run up against total self-confidence. It's very confusing. Well, to give you, now, you wouldn't believe that a thing like that could happen in opera. Well, it did. I saw it. And now that, as a matter of fact, there's a very famous story that also happened in the major leagues. Do you know that a preacher from Philadelphia pitched in the major leagues with not one day of prior organized baseball experience? And it's in the record book. Pitched. Now, I would like to tell you that he struck out 22, and no way. In fact, he held the record for a long time with the most number of runs scored in any one inning against the pitcher. But he was out there. Now, the case of this guy, I'll tell you one more little thing about this singer, the non-singer, actually. He was such a success that he gave up the entire whole scene of of construction and the whole world of business, came to New York, and within 2 weeks opened in a Broadway play because he was so imposing. You walk into this guy, you had to hear him. You had to listen to him when he walked into an audition. I mean, and within 2 weeks he was in a major Broadway play, was a smash hit, and he's been making movies ever since. What's his name? None of your damn business. Now, he happens to have been at that time a good friend of mine. In fact, when I first came to New York, I stayed with him for a while. I had an apartment over here on the west side, over on Central Park West. But now, how's that for a tour de force? And well, you know, you see this happen once in a while. I saw a guy one time. I'll never forget this happening once. It even happens technically, in a technical situation. I saw a guy one time, and this was in the Army. We had a very complex radar setup. I was in radar, very complex stuff, and we it was kind of embarrassing. We were having a lot of problems with a very intricate circuit known as the keyer. The keyer. Did you ever hear of a keyer? Now, if you don't know anything about radar, radar is a series of pulses that are sent out, which hit a reflecting object and bounce back, and there's a finite time differential there, and of course the time varies according to the distance that the thing is away from you. That's what radar really basically is. If you can measure that time distance, you know how far away it is, and you know exactly how fast radio waves travel, which is the speed of light, by the way. So we had this keyer. Now, the keyer is a device which cuts off and on the radar set itself. It's what causes these pulses. It's a keying circuit. It's a very complex thing. We were having a lot of problems, and real problems. Well, we had 32 guys. They were all trained, highly trained, like 2 years of electronics work, highly trained, really trained electronics men. So at that point, we were having problems with this particular keyer. So the whole thrust of the argument after about a week of trying to get this thing working, we're always having problems, was to just get rid of this whole damn keyer and requisition another keyer, you know, and just put another keyer in there, which is the way the Army does it, you know. They do it with broad strokes. Well, about 2 days before we were about to ship this thing back, there was a second lieutenant who was in another platoon, and he was a second lieutenant. You know, first of all, you never think of a second lieutenant as knowing anything, for starters, much less how a keyer works. So the second lieutenant comes over and he says, "You guys having trouble with the keyer?" And somebody says, "Yes, sir." He says, "What's it doing?" And we said, "Well, we're having problems with it. It's not stable. We have all kinds of instability problems. It keeps wandering all over the place." And he said, "You mind if I take a look at it?" And here the thing was open. It was all ripped up anyway. It was wide open. So I said, "Go ahead, take a look at it. But, you know, watch out for those interlocks, baby. Sir, we don't want to have an ionized second lieutenant around the place." He looks in this thing, he's messing around, he says, very interesting. So at that point, our first lieutenant comes over, Lieutenant Cherry, says, "Excuse me, Lieutenant, do you have any experience in the keying equipment?" He says, "Oh, no. So I used to fix radios when I was a kid." I used to fix radios when I was a kid. Here was a crowd of 32 highly trained professional radio. Used to fix radios. Yeah, I used to fix radios. See, I was just taking a look at this thing, and the Lieutenant Cherry says, "Well, you know, go ahead, you know, but don't mess around with it. This, you know, this stuff is not fixing radios. You know, this is not a Sears Roebuck radio." He's looking down in there, and so he calls me over along with another guy, and he says, "What is that circuit right there?" I said, "Well, that's actually that's a second buffer stage. It's a buffer stage between the pulse is actually generated with a crystal generator over here. This is a crystal generator. We have two buffer stages in the driver. This is a buffer stage here." Buffer stage. He said, "Do you have let me, he said, give me a meter, will you?" And at that point, somebody hands him a ohm meter, and he's messing around with the meter down. He says, "You know, this cathode resistor you got here, it's marked 2,000 ohms. that thing doesn't check out. It checks out at about 22,000 ohms. It's marked wrong. So I said, wait, let me take a look at that. So I take the meter, and sure enough, here is a 2,000 ohm resistor, and it's marked 2,000 ohms. It's a high precision resistor. The damn thing measures 22,000 ohms. It was marked wrong. So I said, hey, Elkins, will you bring me one of them 2,000 ohm resistors from the keying drawer over there? And Elkins comes over with a 2,000 ohm resistor, and I just take the soldering iron, I solder one out, I have the 22,000 ohm, and I put in a real 2,000 ohm resistor. And at that point, he says, hey, Elkins, I'm going to fire it up. Will you fire up the power supply? So he's running the power supply, and I turn on the keyer. I don't have to tell you what happened. It ran like Billy be damned. This is about a $12 million piece of equipment. I said to him, I said, Lieutenant, I said, I'm just curious. This thing, did you ever see one of these before? You see, He says, no. I said, I've always been curious. That's why I came over here. He says, I'm over here with the low-speed field radio platoon over here, and I'm just curious about this equipment. I said, you sure you never saw this? He says, no, I never saw it before. He said, but I used to fix radios when I was a kid. I said, oh, well, that explains it, of course. Yes, I understand that. Well, thank you very much, sir. It's very good. Next time we have trouble, we'll call you. He said, oh, anytime. He walked away. Now, I'll guarantee you, he had no idea what he did. Had no idea. And, no way for him to tell me why he decided that resistor was marked wrong. That was one of those unbelievable guesses. But maybe 20 million resistors in this piece of gear. That became a legend. As a matter of fact, whenever anybody used to fix things, really, pull up a good job in our company from that day on, this went on for years, when somebody would actually fix something like fantastically complicated ring UHF high-frequency microwave oscillator. He'd come down, he'd actually fix it. Somebody said, hey, that was really good, Sergeant. He said, I used to fix radios when I was a kid. No problem. Would you please bring it up for me? Now, I suppose a lot of you people wonder why I'm talking like this. Well, I'm not actually Gene Shepard. I'm a guy that wrote him a letter, and I told him I did a great Gene Shepard imitation, and I've been doing the show for the last 3 nights. He's coming back tomorrow night. It's the first time I've been on the radio. There's nothing to it. Oh, yes, this is WOR New York. You stay tuned for John Wingate, you hear?